And welcome to this, the second part of our conference about individual competence of electricians. Some of you will have seen the first part, so welcome back. Some of you will be here for the first time. The first part of the conference is available online if you would like to see it. We were quite pleased with the response. We had over 500 people actually logged in on the day, and since then, some 2,000 have looked at it online. Last time we had something of an overview. We looked at the strategy, and we had presentations from Dame Judith Hackett, who of course is reporting on the Grenfell issues. We also had Alistair Cook for the Engineering Council, and of course Sir Julian, President of the IET. This time we're going to be talking to, perhaps I could call them more practitioners, who will be talking specifically about the way in which they deal with these issues and how they address them. It's important. One of the ways in which you judge the success of these, I have always held the view, is the quality of the questions. In the first part, we had some excellent questions, which really got to the heart of the issues and helped our speakers put across the points they wanted to make. We have Q&A sessions during the course of this morning, and it's important that you raise questions for our speakers. So use them on the chat facility, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. First speaker is Alex Gray, Head of Operation Technology for Thames Water, and he will be talking about the importance of individual competence. We'll hear secondly from Jillian George, who is Head of Property Services East for Sanctuary Housing. She will tell us about her own career and how she's trying to address the gender balance. Following that, Staff Sergeant Lawrence Harrington from the Royal Signals, who will be talking about more about how these issues are dealt with in the military. We'll be here, unfortunately, we've had a couple of people drop out for one or two reasons. So we'll be hearing later on from Michelle Richmond about the IET Concordat and professional registration. There will be a final Q&A at the end to wrap up any questions that have come up during the course of the morning, and the opportunity for Michelle to close it out. We're aiming to finish around 12:30. We'll recap then, and more information about what the IET is looking to do as we go forward. So our first speaker this morning is Alex Gray. As I said, Head of Operational Technology for Thames Water, and so I'd like to hand over now to Alex.
Hello and welcome to Individual Competence Matters. I'm Alex Gray, Head of Operational Technology at Thames Water, and I'm going to run you through a quick 10-minute presentation on why competence matters in the electrical world I work in. So Thames Water, what do we do? Well, we deliver one of life's essential services to our customers, including the treatment and safe disposal of wastewater and the production and distribution of clean drinking water. We also try and ensure that we are supportive of our communities through other initiatives that include driving better environmental standards. We are the largest water and wastewater company in the UK, serving 15 million people in London and the Thames Valley. We achieve this by using engineering know-how to deliver extremely large amounts of water, approximately 18 billion litres a week, which is enough to fill 7,020 Olympic-sized swimming pools. We have a great mixture of complex electrical systems that span our entire estate. Within this, we own and operate electrotechnical systems comprising voltages from 24 volts DC, 4 to 20 milliamp analog loops within our control systems, all the way through to 3.3, 6.6 kV pumps. We also have experience in the maintenance and switching operations of 11 to 33 kV distribution systems. These two examples form the ends of the spectrum. However, we also cover everything between, such as 230 VAC local power and lighting, 400 VAC distribution, 50 volt DC telephony, the list goes on. A couple of pictures on this slide. On the left, we have a 3.3 kV distribution system, and on the right, a single pump that is fed via one of the feeders embedded within this distribution system. The pump is part of a system that delivers clean water to hundreds of thousands of Londoners 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It is an extremely critical asset and electrical system driving it. This, along with all the other electrical systems within Thames Water, require significant levels of competence to be able to operate and maintain safely. Unfortunately, though, some of our electrical assets are old and have been modified over the years, whether to fix an issue or provide new functionality. This, I'm afraid, has on occasion been completed by individuals who may not have had all the necessary skills and competence required to deliver a high quality installation. As we can see, the picture on the left is an old, approximately 20 to 30 year wastewater pumping station kiosk with a mixture of old and more modern electrical accessories. For example, the more modern telemetry panel on the right with the LCD display and a much older pump starter on the left. A flow meter has been squeezed in below the pump starter and a new DNO energy meter installed adjacent to the telemetry. All this change in this example has led to some of the cabling to be installed in a very ad hoc manner, without any real thought on design of the containment it could incorporate. The picture on the right explores some of the more extreme ends of our wiring systems, whereby we've had to repeat modifications and additions come into a panel, and what is left is that traditional rat's nest, an industry term for a big mess basically. All the cables all over the place, with no focus on containment or control. This, in a lot of cases, is caused by a lack of competence and understanding on the systems and a desire to rush through to get the job done, with a limited view on quality output. Now, I think at this stage, I need to cover the fact that I'm not laying the blame at the door of the electricians here, not solely anyway. There are other factors at play, especially in the corporate world where time is not always of the essence and getting the job done no matter what seems to get in the way of quality too. I'm not going to focus on that as part of this talk, but it's extremely naive and fundamentally wrong of me not to mention it. Benchmarking competence for employers. Is the competence skills card I hold enough of a benchmark on its own for me? I sometimes ask myself, is my skills card enough of a benchmark on its own for some of the work undertaken in my field? My own personal journey involved me doing an apprenticeship, primarily as a house basher, with around 80% of my experience coming from working in the domestic environment, with some light industrial and commercial maintenance on top. This meant a lot of work on 230 volt systems, with the occasional but often limited exposure of 400 VAC systems. It took me 4 years to complete my apprenticeship, from complete beginner to craft card owner, which was something I was extremely proud of achieving. And actually, it's still something I'm sure I hold a current up-to-date registered electrician copy of. In all that time during my apprenticeship, however, I only ever made off one armoured cable. It was a 2.5mm 3-core with a BW rated gland that I did at college. I then completed my time and found a new job working for a larger industrial contractor within the water industry. On my first day on site, I found myself being asked to make off a large 240mm 4-core armoured cable, something I had never done before. Now, a major positive, in my opinion, from all that my apprenticeship and the attainment of my craft card gave me was the foundation, if in doubt, ask, something that is still very much a part of any engineer's career, with professional registration even asking applicants to evidence scenarios where knowledge was limited and how we overcame it. So back to the 240mm 4-core, I was able to ask, but did also find it compromising, as this was a huge shift from what I had known electrical work to be. In my opinion, and based on my own experience, gaining a skills card on its own was not enough for me to be fully conversant with all electrical contracting environments. Yes, I have the competence to take a step back and say, help, I don't know what to do here. But perhaps there's a little bit more we can be doing on benchmarking of competence and not just rely upon the skill card on its own to fulfill this function over what is a hugely diverse subject. Okay, how should I benchmark competence? Well, our industry is awash with strong certification and competence schemes. These play a massive part in giving consumers the positive messaging and confidence that a company is operating against a reputable framework, and therefore, by inference, a safe envelope. However, in my opinion, there's a slight gap, and that is, how is individual competence recognised alongside organisational competence? Currently, it's the company that is certified, and the company's responsibility to ensure demonstrable compliance against the procedures and policies laid out by that certification scheme. In a constrained market where current demand far outweighs the available resource, there is naturally an increased flux as the workforce naturally look to seek better remuneration and reward packages. And it's this increased movement of individuals that, in my opinion, the competency schemes are not set up to deal with. They work with the companies, not the individual. So a question I've asked myself and others: how do we as employers drive the individual competence where, unlike the gas industry, there is no similar legislation in place to ensure we recruit and retain electricians whose individual competence has been assessed? I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts on this too, so please do drop your comments in the chat. One answer I've considered is a potential alignment with what the gas industry do on the Gas Safe Register. This currently has information on the companies, but also, quite importantly, holds a register of engineers and lists their services, whether that's domestic commercial, natural gas, LPG, etc. It also goes to quite a granular level with info on specifics such as building regs, cookers, boilers, pipework, vented cylinders, and so on. Could the electrical industry follow suit, and could it be expanded upon to go further into some of the contextualized disciplines within the low voltage electrical sector? So elaborating further on discussions surrounding contextualized competence, it's certainly an approach we started to navigate towards within Thames Water and our electrical teams. We have our functional competencies, and that's ultimately, I work in the electrical industry. And that's the bit where I can say, I have the knowledge to function competently as an electrical professional in Thames Water. However, we can break that down further into role-specific competencies as well. So this could be electricians working on LV lighting and power in and around our facilities. It could be electricians working on complex dual-fed motor control centres with neutral earth switching, standby generator systems, buzz couplers. It could be electricians working on control systems with a mixture of both LV distribution and PELV control signals. And that these control systems are responsible for keeping our core business function up and running. Now, where they all sit in the electrical family, they do also require their own specific knowledge and understanding to be able to operate competently within. Moving on from that, we are now investigating how to formalise this a bit further. One approach at the top level for electrical, which is what we call our group competence family, and which lives under the engineering function, we can deploy anchor roles. These anchor roles would cover group competence such as electrician LV, electrician HV, electrical instrumentation technician, maintenance electrician. From here, we can then move into the contextualised competence areas with job-specific overlays. For example, clean water systems, wastewater systems, telemetry signalling, fire and security, alarms, CCTV systems. And once we have that framework in place, we can finalise it with the details of the job expectations and supporting packages. By considering this as a top-down approach, it is hoped that we can lock in and formalise a robust competency framework that holds safety at the fore. So finally, before I leave you today, maintaining current competence. My experience to date suggests that individuals who invest in their professional development, whether on their own or through registration, provide huge value in ensuring the systems they work on are delivered to the highest standards, with safety as the priority. I also feel that the Engineering Council and UK Spec provide a fantastic framework that is suited to all levels of engineering, from the application of technicians working at EngTech level, right the way through to the maintenance and management of iEng and the development and optimization of CEng. I am now actively encouraging my entire team to adopt this framework, as it is my belief it will strengthen our ability to maintain competence in an ever-changing technical world. I'd like to finish with one final question, and that is, what are you doing to support the competence and CPD of your technical staff as an employer? As always, please post any feedback in the chat. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for your time.
Alex, thank you for that. And that's got our session off to a really good start. Some very important points there, a little bit of contention as well. And the questions and comments are starting to come in, which I'm absolutely delighted to see. Our second speaker this morning is Jillian George. Jillian is Head of Property Services East for Sanctuary Housing, and she's going to talk about her own career journey, the need to address the gender balance, and the need for a recognised qualification scheme for electricians. Jillian, over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning, my name is Jillian George. I'm Head of Property Services for Sanctuary Maintenance. It's a privilege to be here, especially as a female in this industry. For those who are not familiar with Sanctuary, Sanctuary is amongst the most largest social landlords in the UK, with over 69,000 affordable homes in England and more than 105,000 homes operating in England and Scotland. It has 120 care homes, of which 100 are focused on providing care for older people, whilst the remaining 20 provide specialist support for people with learning disabilities. We have a large in-house property services directorate with over 2,000 employees. So my journey. When I was leaving school as a female, I was expected to go to work in an office. It didn't matter where, you were just expected to push paper until you retire, which I didn't question. I just followed suit. I worked in banking, insurance and local councils. Until I worked in the council, I never really knew anything about the construction or maintenance industries. I very quickly got interested. I enjoyed organising the repair works for operatives to go out and fix all the works and work closely with the trade supervisors. However, I couldn't really see how I could be part of it. I was just blinkered that I needed to keep pushing that paper and be a support function for others. That all changed in my late 20s when somebody inspired me and asked me why I'd been in the same job for over 10 years and opened my eyes to realise that I could do anything in my life. I was so inspired, I decided to be a trade supervisor and looked into different evening courses. I went to see the maintenance manager to ask her on advice of how I could progress and what I needed to do. He was very blunt and told me it was too late for me to get into all of that. I needed a trade behind me, I needed a HNC, and that if I wanted to progress, I should talk to my manager and think about being a manager for the admin team one day. That manager could have been the making or the break of me. Luckily, it gave me the biggest fire in my belly to prove him wrong and prove to myself that I could really do anything. Whilst working full-time, I went to evening college, open university courses back to back. I worked my socks off to get my BTEC in surveying, HNC. I then qualified as a plumber. Now, part of that course was covering electrics, which I loved so much that I did electrical level 2, 3, MVQ, AM2, 2391 and the EV charging. In my working day, I took every opportunity to learn from supervisors and surveyors. I worked extra hours and gave up free time to go out on site to get practical experience in all areas of construction. I wanted to progress to that supervisor job that I wanted. And I did. I flew the nest, and since working for Sanctuary for over 8 years, I've progressed up the ladder of the property services team, now to head of property services in the East region. Yes, this was exhausting at times, but I never gave up, and my greatest achievement was becoming an electrician, as it was difficult but worth it. Still to this day, if people ask me what I do for a living outside work, I quite often say that I'm an electrician, as I'm just so proud of that fact. The greatest thing about my job now at Sanctuary is that I'm in the best position to help and inspire others to progress, especially women. There is such a need for females in the construction industry. The construction industry has an ageing workforce. The UK faces a shortage of over 60,000 construction workers by the year 2050. We have a pool of over 50% of the population not being tapped into that we can inspire into this industry. It took London 2012 Olympics and the Women's World Cup football to inspire a generation to kickstart a change for sports. We don't have that platform, but if we work together across organisations, we can create change. We need role models, we need to inspire, we need to go into those schools and colleges to let those females know that this industry exists, that it's an exciting and, more importantly, that they can be part of it. There has never been a better time for them to join. There are some organisations and charities out there that offer help and advice, such as Women into Construction, Women in Construction and the Women's Trade Network. Please check them out or contact me for more details in order for us to start working together. Last but not least, the other subject I wanted to address is the need for a recognised qualification scheme for electricians. When I was at college, we all wanted to know, when do we become qualified as an electrician? I still see the same question on all the electrical forums each week. In Sanctuary and other large organisations, we have a lot of trade supervisors that manage all trades, not just electricians. I continually get asked if I can check qualifications and information given to them by electricians to see if they are qualified to apply for the job. Everyone has different answers, and it's such a grey area that it puts the electrical industry at risk and in turn puts others at risk. Why does it have to be so difficult? There is a call, especially from us large organisations and companies in this industry, that we need this scheme in place once and for all. It needs to be clear for all employees going forward to know whether they can employ someone as a fully qualified electrician and to be confident that they are in fact qualified. I know the IET has been working on this. I welcome this and also encourage others to do the same. So again, we can create change and positive for the future and safer together.
Thank you, Jillian. Once again, some interesting points there, which are prompting questions, which is excellent. There is no question that the gender balance in the industry is a serious issue that we're going to have to find a way of dealing with, and looking forward to hearing comments about how that might be addressed. Our next input is from Staff Sergeant Lawrence Harrington. He's been employed as a power engineer within the Royal Corps of Signals since September '98. Currently employed as a training analyst and course designer for his trade group, where he uses his extensive experience to identify the future needs for the Royal Signals. We have two short videos which we'll play back to back, and then we will go into the Q&A session. Thank you.
How we actually develop our technical personnel and soldiers for their competencies is through workbook portfolios actually done in units, signed off by their line managers and shop floor mentors, so that they can actually be skill-based and assessed at every stage throughout their training as well. Further to this, the soldiers will also have to attend further upgrading courses to allow for them to have a broader and more in-depth and detailed knowledge and understanding of their trades as well. So as soon as a technical person arrives from the technical training schools, what we have to undertake is a series of work portfolio books and tasks that are skills and trade relevant to the actual individual in itself. These are usually dictated by policy and guidance, but are also role specific. These jobs will also directly affect the operational output and effectiveness of the units as well. These competencies will only be signed off once complete by their line manager, who will be the same trade. Once these individuals have completed a set amount of criteria, this workbook is then passed off to the Royal School of Signals, where this person or technical soldier will be awarded their Class 2, in old terminology, now will be known as Associate Standard of Competence as well. Once they have done the subsequent amount of courses and technical training and skills, they will then have to attend the Royal School of Signals for further upgraded training to allow for a deeper and more detailed technical knowledge within their trade groups. All again assessed by the senior line managers, mentors, assessors, and IQA personnel available within the MOD. The skills learned by any soldier, whether they're technical personnel or not, are highly adaptable and highly valued within any civilian industry available out there. Within my own personal trade as a Royal Signals power engineer, we actually have a rather broad and detailed technical ability. These can actually range from being as a junior soldier from repairing generators and temporary power installations through to myself at my rank and experience of actually designing, commissioning, installing and managing a site that can be up to and including 500 personnel of staff officers. This would also be for a non-distinct amount of time as well. The technical competencies developed within the Royal Signals themselves are actually highly sought after. This is mainly because the technical abilities of us as soldiers, and especially my trade group, are highly adaptable and also require a great deal of design and thought processes to go into these technical decisions, because we are working in environmentally challenging situations at all times. This gives us an added edge against our civilian counterparts throughout industry.
Thank you. And now we bring back Alex, Jill, and Lawrence for a Q&A session. We'll be picking up some of the questions that have been posted online, and we'll be also picking up some that were fielded last time, but are more properly, easily dealt with this time. Shall we start with this gender imbalance? Jill, do you want to say a bit more about that? And then perhaps Lawrence, particularly how it's addressed in the military?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Yeah, I think there's so few females coming through, and I think the biggest thing is the role models. We're just not, in schools, it's not, when they're sort of choosing what career they want to do, electrical industry is not something, or even in the construction industry, is not something that females automatically think of. I'm seeing more and more females on like electrical forums that, a bit like me, they started in much later in life, in their 30s and 40s, to change careers. And I think the most important thing is if we can get into those schools, just to show those females that this industry does exist. At Sanctuary, we've done a few careers fairs where we take things along for all children to kind of, play with, tinker with, just to kind of enjoy doing a little bits of electric, little bits of plumbing, things like that. So I just think it's something that we need to work together as a collective to encourage females and just show that the industry is here, and just create those role models. The more we get, the more that are going to come through.
Yeah. Lawrence, is it an issue in the military?
It's probably as much an issue in the within the military as it is within the actual civil industry in itself. The fact that Jill's actually made the comments of having gender specific or gender female role models, although whilst hasn't been picked up within the military, over the last 5 to 10 years, there has been a significant uplift in females that have actually held the high-ranking positions as well. The Master of the Royal Signals is currently a female. Although whilst within the military, it's we are promoted and pushed into jobs on skill and vocational based, it is also a reflection within the military as to how it is within civil industries, and also the acceptance of within civilian street as well.
Do you do anything to specifically target and encourage application from females?
That I can't honestly answer, because that would be more of a question for the recruitment teams as well. But again, it is something that has been identified and has been pushed out through the wider onus of our recruitment, that there is more females needed within the military, much the same as all forms of positive recruiting from other backgrounds, no matter what they are as well. We also have a vast array of foreign Commonwealth soldiers in the military, those that necessarily aren't part of the actual Commonwealth as well. So it is a very broad range of people within the military, from top to bottom, no matter the cap badge or skill set actually required as well.
Alex, is it an issue that Thames Water recognises?
Yeah, absolutely. We are very, very focused on driving better inclusivity in sort of the electrical world, in the instrumentation world. We put all of our adverts through I'm trying to think of what this is. It goes through a language checker to ensure that the language the adverts are put are not necessarily very masculine in the wording, and we ensure. So we've got lots of strategic objectives in our recruitment policies that try to maximise going out to to everyone, not just male engineers. If I can just offer an opinion though, what I've noticed in everything I've done so far in this space, in trying to increase female applicants, I think we need to do more at the school level. We need to get young girls when they're in school. So I think I've talked about this before. We need to show girls at an early age what engineering can offer, before they make their choices, before they get to 15, 16 years old. Because I know I speak about it. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 15, 16. I knew that I liked doing stuff, and I knew I liked being creative, and I knew I liked, sort of that engineering thing. No one actually came in to show me what I could achieve as an engineer. And I think, just for my own journey, including young females and young boys, just everyone, I think if we get there a bit earlier with the STEM subjects and really, really push engineering, we could see an influx. It's going to take time. And in terms of role models, Jillian, I think you're a superb role model for young females, and keep doing what you're doing. Like, superb. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the questions, turning now to more to the competence issue, one of the questions that's come up through the chat is the suggestion that it might be more straightforward maintaining and increasing competence if we compartmentalized. So, for example, differentiating between commercial and domestic. How do you feel about that?
So, yeah, I've been reading the chat. It's really interesting because I can see that there's an argument for and an argument against. And ultimately, if we were to take BS 7671 and split it into those different areas, it would undoubtedly achieve the ability to become more specialist. But conversely, you run the risk of siloing.
Yeah.
And so I don't have an opinion on this because I think it's I've not thought about it, if I'm honest, and it would be wrong of me to say, yeah, I think we should do this. I think we should definitely talk about it more. I think just watching the chat on the YouTube stream right now and seeing the kind of conversation that it's provoking, I think it's worth exploring, definitely.
Yeah.
And to look to put the meat on the bones of it a bit more.
I'm going to jump in on this as well. I've been following along as well, Alex and Keith, and this terminology siloing, it's one that I've never actually heard of, but certainly specialising within actual trades that we do or skill sets that we do. This is something that the army or the military overall very much does. Whereas within my chat in itself, I said that I do temporary electrical installations and generators. That is my whole remit of it. Yes, when I came through and I did my initial trade training, I had a good smattering of everything that my trade would encompass with the different types of generators, the locations that we'd actually be doing. But that was literally where it stopped. Then as I got older, I decided to go into more being a policy, technical policy, SME type arena, because that is where my forte lied. However, stepping outside of the Royal Signals, the Royal Engineers, who do a very similar job to what I do, or I do a similar job to them, whichever way you want to look at it, they deal with the fixed infrastructure of buildings, whereas I deal with the temporary field deployments. So this siloing aspect is, as what you say, Alex, it does need investigating, but there still needs to be, at the start, a very broad brush overview of everything that is actually out there and available within a specific industry.
And therein lies the serious question, as if you are going to specialize in your terms, at what stage in your career do you do that? And is it valid in the apprenticeship, for example, to have a broad base so you have a knowledge and understanding of a wide range of issues, even if you subsequently specialize?
So within the military, we tend to specialize around probably, if I said 8 years, that's usually when we get our second promotion to corporal. We tend to specialize in the arena that we actually want to go to there as well. And it's pretty generic across the 2 cap badges that I actually mentioned as well. The Royal Signals career model is currently changing as well, where we do get the choice to actually specialize, or certain trades within the Signals get a choice to actually specialize, whether we go down the digital infrastructure or the physical communication side, or alternatively the digital communication side of life as well. So it is something that can be achieved. It just takes the whole industry and a single point lead in it to say, we need to change. This is the change. To
what extent is specialization versus broad-based an issue for you?
Um,
Sorry, for
yeah,
Jill.
sorry, go on. Sorry.
I just wondered how you deal with it, Jill.
Yeah, I think because a lot of our properties are domestic, you know, we do just kind of, as Alex would say, the house bashers. But yeah, it's difficult because even, you know, you see on forums when people are asking when they're sort of trying to change careers from domestic and commercial, it's really quite different. But I think we do need an overview, like we've got in the regs. We do need an overview for everybody to kind of look at the whole picture of the industry. I think even with Sanctuary, we've got a specific fire team for fire electricians, so that deal with all the alarms and the emergency lighting. So our domestic guys and girls won't do that side. So we have those two separate. So I think you do need to have a specialist. You couldn't, you know, there's not one-stop shop. So I do think we do need to specialize in some areas, maybe have separate extra information and references to go to.
Yeah. Sorry, Lawrence, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's fine.
If you have more to say, please.
There's actually Neil Bridgman has actually brought up a very good point in there, saying what is the link between gender and competency? For me, within the military, there is no link between gender, there is no separate link between gender and competency. It's to me and to the military overall, I say the military overall, it's you can either do it or you can't, to be brutally honest. I don't know what Jill's thoughts on this, and I'd be quite interested to hear from certainly a civilian side whether you think there's any difference or any links between gender and actual competence as well, Jill.
Yeah, to be honest, if anything, you know, generally women are smaller framed, and so generally what I've noticed on sites, it's easier for me to, you know, I've got smaller things. It's easier for me to do the terminals. It's easy for me to squeeze through the loft gaps, or, you know, those that have done lots of domestic work, you're squeezing in all sorts of spaces to be able to fit something. So to be honest, if anything, it's a benefit. The only thing that's not a benefit, and a lot of organisations need to deal with this, is things like PPE and uniform. They're just not yet. I know that one company has just started to do a uniform for females, but you know, everything's just so big and baggy, and even gloves, actually it makes it a little bit more dangerous because you're not always got the proper right things like gloves on, because they're just too big. So we need to just really push that as well.
Sure. Alex?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've got a couple of young ladies in my team and we struggle to get PPE to fit them. I want to just, if it's okay, I want to circle back to the competence.
Sure.
I don't feel, I think we have to, our apprenticeships are a good thing. I think everything that we do with our, my time as an apprentice was fantastic building. I wouldn't want to take away from young aspiring electricians that training piece, because you do, you see it all in your apprenticeship. Yes, I appreciate you might be doing that day release, and the company you work with, you are only seeing a subset of the electrical industry, but ultimately the apprenticeship and everything that you do in your college work should stay that, and that forms your foundation for your electrical journey as an engineer, or whatever journey you want to take. And it's after that you then specialize. I understand the argument for splitting the regs out. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but it's just an opinion. It's definitely something that I'm always welcome to discuss and have debate on. But I do think we need to build your foundation as an apprentice, get yourself to the point that you are a gold card holder. I only even brought mine today because it's been a while, but I'm still super proud of this little bad boy here, and I make sure that I renew it all the time. And so once that's done, then, and you're looking into the specialism, it's just how do we then regulate the specialism? And I think that's the golden, like if we had an answer to that.
I have to say I agree with you. I have always seen the apprenticeship as a foundation for a career, whatever direction it might take you in. And the question about can everybody do absolutely everything, as things get more intricate and technical, that probably isn't the case, which drives you towards some sort of specialization. however you describe it. What do you do about making sure that that your electricians stay up to date with changes in technology and regulations and so forth?
And that's to me still, Keith.
Yeah, please.
Second.
Yeah.
You know, we ensure that we have, you know, we're a very large corporation. So we have the benefit of, you know, having learning and development departments, having, you know, line managers trained in ensuring that their staff, whether that's electricians, mechanical engineers, whatever it is, have skills matrices. And, you know, we ultimately will look, you know, if you're still got a 17th edition qualification, that we would look to proactively get you to 18th edition. But again, it is very much in terms of your qualification as an electrician. That's all it is. It's like, you know, I've got my gold card and I've got my current regs, and okay, I might be able to go and do my 2391. I think it's still, I'm not sure if it's called that anymore, so I might have got that wrong. And on the old C course for technician, you know, those design and verification, I believe, what I used to know as 2440, but you know, don't hold me to that. I might have that one wrong. But after that, it's very limited. Other than you know, specialists, you know, do your HV ticket, so I can switch, you know, 6.6, 11 kV, whatever that is, and that's very much driven by the role you do within temps.
Yeah.
If you are required to switch HV, you have to have
Yeah.
your ticket before you do it. It's as simple as that. I want to, sorry to kind of slightly, because H was talking about digital, and I'm really interested in that. That's a lot of what I do in my work, but also, you know, like we say about the apprenticeship being a foundation, I do think we need to start thinking about getting digital modules in there, because, you know, IoT and the way things are going and connectivity, I don't want electricians to be left by the wayside. You know, it's a 3-year course. You can do everything in there. But I do think that we need to start baking in and folding in some of the digital technology so that electricians are at the fore. So it's not just that the Sparky on the site goes and wires the thing up and then some other person comes along to do the Hollywood bit. That's what we used to say. It's kind of like when I was on site, you know, the PLC programmer, the electricians are pulling in the cables, doing all the hard graft, getting it ready to connect, and then the PLC programmer comes and does the little laptop bit and makes it all come to life. I think we need to embed that within the apprenticeship scheme so that the electricians have got the ability to have an appreciation of it, and then at the point that they qualify, get their gold card, they have more of an understanding of what the industry has to offer, and they can make those decisions. They say, well, I'm going to carry on with the electrician route, or I'm going to do a mixture, or I'm going to specialize in the digital arena.
Yeah, that's actually a very timely comment, because I do know that within the next 2 or 3 months, the electrotechnical apprenticeship is going to be reviewed. And part of the argument is going to be, what new things do you include? But in keeping it to a reasonable time period, if you're going to bring more things in, you have to start thinking about what are you going to leave out. So that's a very timely comment, because that's a debate that's going to be entered into over the next few months. Lawrence, it must be an issue for you keeping your people up to date.
Yes, it is. So I'll just make sure that I'm not on mute. Yeah, good, not on mute. So yes, it is a thing. It's a known problem, because we're an organisation that is essentially spread to the 4 winds all over the UK. Actually keeping track of our soldiers that being kept up to date with the qualifications it's a challenge. It is doable, and it is a challenge. We do try our best to get it right, but unfortunately sometimes we're not as fast as we should be, especially when we're on we've actually got our main job to do, and that is our operational outputs, potentially even deploying overseas and such like as well. Much the same as what Alex was talking about as well with the skills matrices, we have something within the military as well that's called REC, R-E-C, Record of Equipment Competence. Now, although whilst it's got equipment in there, that actually means that every skill and every output that we can actually do that is slightly specialized but trade related, we have to record whether we can do it under direct supervision, indirect supervision or whether we can actually be left to complete to our own devices. And that is assessed against a level of competence as well. So it's trade specific all the way through as well.
How about you, Jill?
I think, again, a bit like Alex, because we're such a large organisation, we've got a dedicated team that look after learning and development, and things like, 18th edition, when that changed over, that's something that we put people through, will pay for, will provide, all the literature and extra training. And I think one thing as well, because we're so large, we've got a good network of people. I think any electrician in this industry will know as well, everything, there's so many things down to interpretation. So I think it's making sure that we've got those key links, that we've always got someone else to phone and consult with, and just have that really, really good network. And obviously having the QSs in different, a good few in a different region, that we've got someone to go through and provide that support and training. But yeah, I think we're quite lucky because we've got a whole department that look after that particular part.
Indeed. But a lot of the organizations in the industry are SMEs. Do you think there are specific problems for those companies?
Yeah, I think, again, it's just sort of that investment in your staff as well. It's, even reading some of the comments, someone wasn't even buying a book for someone. And I think, it's a very difficult one.
Yeah. Alex, do you have a view on that?
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the SMEs and for the smaller companies, so it's easy for, the larger companies. We've got the investment there to run the L&D teams. How do the one band individuals, the small companies that maybe have 5 to 10 employees manage it? I don't know. These companies have to operate, and that they have to. It's a really difficult one. You can't waste you can't invest all your profit on training individuals when the threat, part of my slide deck talks about the flux because of the skill shortage, and electricians looking to seek better remuneration packages, which is absolutely fine. It's what I certainly did it. So investing in people and the risk that they will then take that investment, that training, and then go and seek better remuneration, it's really difficult. I don't know how to answer that. I don't want to offer an answer because I just genuinely don't know. It really is a difficult situation for the smaller companies to address. I'm sorry. I'm in an R in Keith. It's because I don't know. I just don't know.
Let me dig you out of that then.
Thank you.
Perhaps people in the audience who are from SMEs will share their thoughts and experiences, so that we can pick up on them. I really don't want to go into this in too much detail because it's far too contentious. But members of the audience have raised once again this issue of license to practice. How do you feel about that?
I like it. What I've seen it do in the gas industry.
Yeah.
Will it work in the electrical industry? I don't know. And it kind of links back to this, what's it going to cost the smaller companies? What's it going to take to implement? I like it because what it's done in the gas industry. Does that make it a like for like fit for the electrical industry? Probably not. Can we learn from it? Definitely. How can we adapt parts of it, if not all of it, to suit the electrical industry? All I know is that we've got to do something because the quality of the electrical installations across the country right now are substandard, and so
that's a sweeping statement.
There are some serious concerns with some of the electrical installations that we have.
Okay.
My slide, even in my own company, we see some seriously, substandard workmanship on some of our sites, and we have to go and address that. And I'm not saying it's the result of qualification and people's only having not having a license to practice, but this national, the whole point of us coming together and to talk about competence is because we see that something needs to be done in the electrical industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's competence at the level of the individual
Yes.
run the organisation. Jill,
Yes.
is that something you recognise?
Absolutely. I mean, even when we take people on, obviously we make sure that they've got those the right qualifications, and then we put the right training and support in place. We don't really have any issues there, but what I do see a lot of is on the electrical forums. So many people, one of the common things is people doing the sort of those short courses rather than the apprenticeships. They go on those short courses and then start going out and I'm an electrician. I think that it's such a grey area, and the end customer, especially in sort of private and even sort of a lot of the private landlords, they just want, especially with the certificates, they just want it done as cheaply as possible, and minimum work as possible. And I think there's just so many kind of companies or starting up or individuals that are starting up and doing that work and doing it quickly and cheaply. It does raise questions that, when I see things like people doing EICRs for £95 for a 4-bed property, for the private rented, that is a concern. That doesn't tell me that's being done properly. So I just think that there's a lot of concern, and if we had something specific, let's not make a grey area. Let's make it black or white. People know where they are and what they've got to do, and it will cost people the correct money, because all these, everyone's got the proper qualifications that they've spent their own time and money on for that service,
which could then lend itself to increased revenue for the jobbing individuals to be able to train their electricians, because you are mandating it and making it legislative, such that to get it done in accordance with the law, it costs this much, and you can't bypass that, and therefore we should be able to perhaps inject revenue into the industry to allow the training, whether you're 10,000 people or 5 people.
Lawrence, I'm thinking that with your REC, you effectively run your own license to practice.
Essentially, yes. And also within our technical document sets as well, it is very specified as to what we can and, more importantly, what we cannot do. So whilst there are certain grey areas that do exist, because we are essentially a policy and direction and guidance driven organisation, if within a document it says we can do something, so long as we have met all these prerequisites and criteria, and we personally believe that we can actually do the job, then we can go ahead and do a specific task. But also on the flip side of that, if it says that we need to hold certain qualifications or competencies or a rank, as I have seen previously, then we know straight out that we cannot do this as well. And if there are changes to civil legislation, statutory legislation, best practices out in the civil industries, and it hasn't been picked up by our technical documentations teams, what we can do is we can actually submit these changes into this board and actually get our technical sets, our technical documents actually updated, of which it used to be a long and laborious process, but now it's actually fast. We can get a change done from moment of identification through submission, through being pushed out within weeks, as opposed to months.
Alex, do you think a voluntary scheme would work? For example, the IET has the opportunity to register as Eng Tech. Is this something that you think an organisation could use to make people aware of the competence of their electricians?
I think so. Yes. I mean, we are actively, publishing IET and encouraging our technicians and our electricians to go for the Eng Tech qualification. Because it gives demonstrable development, and my journey of doing Eng Tech is it got me on the ladder, as you say, within the IET, to understand the processes and actually open the door to look IEng, CEng, and help me within my career. But that was very personal to me, and it helped me. How does it help a company? It gives you the framework for individuals to develop themselves and to keep their CPT up to date. But does it help your bottom line?
Not
yet.
No. Jillian, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's to what sort of benefit. It's especially sort of domestic. It's to what benefit for those individuals and the company. Obviously, we do all the checks, competencies. But I think again, sort of it almost swings back to competencies. We can get all these bits of paper and documents of different qualifications and different things, but again, it's that online, on-site experience. You can have all these things, but still not be able to physically do it. You've got all the knowledge and you've done those little bits in college and those little bits for your portfolio. But I think that the main thing is, we're not there yet. We need to push out something quite specific to be able to say you are now qualified. But again, we just need to make sure that people are, us, the big companies especially, can help people come through and get that on-site training, even if it's work experience, work placements, work with the colleges, just to be able to give the amount of people I see on the forums that are asking for work experience. Those the little companies can't take them on because it costs them money to show them. But whereas places like housing associations, we can give those placements to people to come and learn.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. That's a wide-ranging conversation there. We've covered an awful lot of stuff. About to move on now, but just to give you the opportunity, is there anything that any other points that any of you would like to make, or things that you think we've missed?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Go on then, Jillian.
Yes, so just going swinging back with regards to bringing women into the industry.
Yeah.
I just think that there's lots of organisations. There's Women's Trade Network, Women into Construction. There's lots of organisations that are coming through now, like even charities that are offering free training, free support for companies, free advice, that you can kind of, like, your companies can go to and work with and provide support both ways, and they sort of do a mentor scheme as well. So I'd really encourage anyone that's wanting to bring females into construction just to have a look at those, and again, just create our own networks to be able to go into those schools, look out for those careers fairs and work experience days, and just offer that support to bring the females in early.
And indeed, a reminder to organisations that when they're running into issues about recruitment, there's a wide pool of females in which you can bring more people in. So that has to be an advantage. Alex, any final points?
Just on Jillian's point about networks and just what we're doing here, let's just keep talking. This conversation about this subject let's just keep it going, because it wasn't happening, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. It's now happening. We're doing something about it, and just to see the chat and this is close to people's hearts, and as long as we can, I'm committed to helping, and there are so many wonderful volunteers on this that are helping. Let's just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll get there.
Thank you for that, Alex, and thank you all of you. I'm going to move on now to Peter Bonfield, who is past president of the IET. He introduced the Concordat scheme to the IET, and many employers have joined with the IET to demonstrate their commitment to individual competence of their team. He'll also be talking about professionalism, ethics, and public safety. Peter.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Peter Bonfield, and it's a great pleasure to speak to you today at this conference. I was president of the institution of the IET in 2019, 2020, and my day job is I'm vice chancellor and president here at the University of Westminster in London. Anyway, it's really, really good to speak to you on this topic area, and it's so important you're here, and we're focused on building safety, on competence, on ethics, because it's absolutely an imperative for all of us who are responsible, who want to do the right things by society, connected to our work. And you're part of by being here as well, you're part of a collective movement of people and organisations who care, who will act in the right way and make sure that things progress as they should do from now and into the future. So, I mean, by way of background, and I've said about my role and my day job now and my former role as president of the IET, but one of the things I brought through, which I'll speak about a bit more in a minute, when I was president, was a Concordat. And a Concordat really that is all about professionalism, ethics and competency for all of our members operating in whatever field they work in within our institution. And indeed, that has much broader relevance across all the engineering institutions. And the reason I was very passionate about that and motivated to do something about that was because in my career, I've done a number of independent reviews for different secretaries of state when things have gone wrong and when they need some independent perspective on how to fix things. One of which was looking at green technologies, energy efficiency measures, and how they're applied to people's homes through government measures like the Energy Company Obligation and the former Green Deal. And the reason I was asked by two secretaries of state to look into that sector, to see what was going on and to see what might be done to improve things, was the reality was a lot of some of the most vulnerable people in our society were having shoddy work done by people that shouldn't really have been allowed to operate, that was resulting in all sorts of problems and difficulties and, you know, terrible outcomes actually for people with mold growth, cold homes. So actually you had the principle of something that was really positive, which is about using the energy company obligation measures to put that money into some of the poorest people in our society's homes to reduce their energy bills and to allow them to live in warm and comfortable conditions to improve their health and well-being. So very good intent. Yet in practice, too many people were being able to operate in substandard ways, which was actually making things worse. So anyway, I was asked by two secretaries of state to look into that. And my review, which I commend to you, is called Each Home Counts. It's published. If you Google Each Home Counts Gov or Bonfield Each Home Counts Gov, you can read my report. It's pretty hard hitting. It says that basically these types of practices can't be allowed to continue. It makes some very clear recommendations, all of which have been endorsed and supported by the government and significant parts of the industry, and they're now being implemented. I think I published the review in 2016, and the outcomes are still impacting how things are done. Nonetheless, you know, we all have to work on doing the right thing in the right ways. And basically, the other thing I found in my review was there were really good players who had great ethics, who were setting up their businesses and their organizations to deliver really good outcomes to those vulnerable people in housing that deserve to live in warm homes, that reduce their energy bills, that give them a healthier, happier life, who were doing the right things about their own training and development, making sure that and caring about the quality of the work they did and making sure that it could be trusted. But the other problem was, of course, that they were being undercut by organizations that didn't care. And so unfortunately, I mean, many of those companies actually went out of business, and it made things all pretty bad, really. Anyway, the good thing is the government adopted the recommendations in my review. They're putting quality marks between the money that they flow out and that goes into the sector to improve energy efficiency and renewable technology application on homes, so that there's much more rigor now in the people that are allowed to operate and the products and the services that are being allowed to be offered. I still worry about it. I still think you have to be relentless in driving and ensuring that there's enough sort of teeth in the system to make sure that only the right people are able to operate and that society is properly protected. But nonetheless, it's positive that those steps have happened. So that linked to my I did some other reviews as well and looked at some other sectors where I found similar things. I also, by the way, worked on the Olympics for London 2012 between 2006 and 2012. And there I saw the complete opposite. I saw how by operating with the highest standards, great ethics, always doing the right thing, you know, procuring against a balanced card of factors rather than just the cheapest, you could achieve fantastic outcomes. So, you know, that was completely inspiring. And again, a lot of that came down to the way in which people work, the type of people that were employed, and operating within your competencies, making sure people are on top of the game, having ethics that are super strong, and always being super professional in everything that's being done. That was just a dream to be involved in, and the outcomes of that are things to be celebrated. So I've seen pretty bad things and pretty good things. Anyway, so that sort of all links to the conference today, doesn't it? You heard from Sir Julian early on. He spoke about a number of areas, including professionalism, competence and ethics. You heard from Dame Judith, who's done some really, really important work around building safety. And again, you heard from her about competence. Later on today, you're going to hear from Michelle Richmond, and I really commend her presentation to you. She's going to issue it like a call for action, which I hope you'll engage in, be part of, and make sure that you're all playing your part in driving improvement across the sector. So, I mean, this theme has sort of flown through the day and will continue through the rest of the day. And there'll be specific things you can sign up to get engaged in going forward. The Concordat, I'd like to commend the Concordat to you. It's the Concordat that was developed on my watch was really about ensuring that chief executives of organizations, big and small, recognized how important it was to value and to appreciate and to celebrate, as well as to require competence in practice. So, yeah, so that's a really important thing. The second part is really making sure that people are doing, you're all doing your continuing professional development. You know, the CEO of a company is ensuring that their engineers, their technicians, and others that do really important work are keeping up to speed with the state of the art. They're improving their competency. They're continually improving what they can do. So they're operating within in their own competency. So the work they do can be trusted and will work and will meet regulatory requirements, will publish society. And then the third part is about linking to what you heard from Andrew Coates. It's about professional registration and abiding by the principles of the Engineering Council, which are around ethics, competency, doing the right thing by society, and those sorts of things. So the Concordat basically was a tool to get CEOs, chief executives, to sign up to this requirement to support and celebrate the type of work you do, to encourage, give you space for, require you to keep on top of your game through continuing professional development and volunteering and mentoring and those other sorts of activities that help. So it's about your own learning, but also about giving your learning to others. And the third part is about really aligning with and abiding to the principles that come from the Engineering Council around ethics, competency, and doing the right things by society. And what I did as well before actually I became president was I met a whole array of chief engineers, chief technologists, basically the bosses of technical functions within organizations, some very, very big ones and a number of very small ones. And the outcome from that was to then connect with their chief executives to get them sign up to these concordats. And so when I started my presidency, in my inaugural address, I was already able to show that many companies have signed up, many companies have demonstrated this commitment, and many companies recognize that this is a very important way of managing risk and ensuring their companies did the right thing. So it's a positive step. Since then, more companies have signed up, which is good. And what you'll hear from Michelle as well later is more about how IET have embraced this and developing a framework which actually, you know, keeps these companies on their toes and makes sure that they're providing the type of support that people like you need to help you be professional, do things you're proud of, and that protect your customers and people across our society. So that was a very positive step. And what is really important is that isn't just sort of a phase that people go through on my presidency, but it actually becomes part of the raison d'etre of the way in which we do things. So again, listen to Michelle later for her call to action. But what I would ask each of you to do is, if you're in a very small company, or if it's your own business, look at the Concordat. If it's your business, look at the Concordat, and you sign yourself up to those principles and then live by them. If you're in a bigger company and you're employed by a bigger company that haven't signed up to the Concordat, well, first of all, find out, has your company signed up to the Concordat or not? The team at IET can let you know if you ask them. And the second thing to say is, if they haven't, well, then let's get them to. So again, they can support you and invest in you and to ensure that your company is supporting you in the way that you deserve to be and need to be to operate competently and ethically and within your competence. So they're two, if you don't mind, they're two requests of you. And again, that then is a starting point, if you like, for following the follow through, which comes with all the work that Michelle and her team are leading. And also it's something that will bind you all as a community, as a movement of people who are professional, responsible, and who care. So you don't have to do any of those things, but I think just being here and being interested in attending this event demonstrates already that you'll be one of the good people who want to do the right things. And again, if we can add your energy and your determination to our movement for action, then that would be really, really welcome. So the other thing about this too is, of course, this whole area of competency and doing the right thing is not something you do once. It's not like a task that you do once and you finish with and you can relax on. It's a bit like health and safety or well-being. You have to be relentless and continual in keeping on top of things to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And the way technology is changing, the way in which technology is changing, the digital world that's coming in, many things continually change, which is why the continuing professional development element is such a critical part of all of us being competent at what we do. So I hope that's helpful. It's great you're here. It's great that IET is hosting this conference on competency and building safety linked to electrotechnical matters. It's great you're here. I commend you for being here, and just request that you continue to be and become a real movement, and a real movement for doing the right things relentlessly across the sector. So thank you very much for listening. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Peter. That introduction to the Concordat is very helpful. It's a very interesting document, which I would absolutely recommend. And if you'd like to read about the Concordat scheme, the information is all there on the IET website. Our final speaker today is Nikki Dennis. Nikki works for a large contractor and has become professionally registered as Eng-Tech. He's going to talk about his journey, why he believes professional registration is so important. Thank you very much, and over to you, Nikki.
My name is Nikki Dennis. I'm a lead electrician, qualifying supervisor for Mighty Group PLC. Here's a little bit about the company I work for. Mighty are a large facilities company with around 70,000 employees. They cover a wide variety of services, one of which being electrical installation and maintenance. We work on various properties, including commercial, industrial, retail, and domestic spaces. Although they are such a large company, working for Mighty, you really get a sense of togetherness, especially when working in teams to get work completed. As well as this, they provide great perks, which the larger companies have access to. My job role within Mighty is a mobile engineer, as well as being a qualifying supervisor. I started work for Mighty in 2012, where I started as an electrical bias mobile engineer. My role as a mobile engineer requires me to attend various places within my given region, which spans across Essex, London, and Kent. I carry out a wide range of electrical work on a mainly reactive basis, dependent on customers' needs. This includes anything from replacement light fittings to an installation of circuits supplying equipment such as supply for an electric forklift charge point or supply for a sprinkler/fire alarm systems. My role as a qualifying supervisor includes testing and inspection of electrical installations, supervision of around 30 engineers, certifying certificates completed mainly by our own employed engineers, but sometimes I am called upon to check subcontractors' work is fully compliant too. Upon correct completion of certificate, It is also my duty to ensure all test equipment is checked and calibrated to ensure compliance. I began the qualifying supervisor role as I really wanted to start making a difference within the business when it comes to electrical work. Mighty supported me in this role to ensure I was fully prepared to take on the huge responsibility that is involved with this work. It also includes support for assessments from a third-party governing body on a yearly basis. These assessments are required to ensure the business's needs are met and is fully compliant whilst carrying out certifying and electrical work. Part of the job as a qualifying supervisor means I am always on hand to offer advice to any engineers carrying out electrical work. This is achieved sometimes by carrying out site visits with the engineers to run through the work with them, as well as site visits. I also provide assistance where I can by using phone, pictures or videos. However, I do believe that face-to-face supervision is more efficient. Here is a little more about myself and my career progression so far, which includes qualifications through city and guilds, as well as other various commitments. I first enrolled for the electrical installation course in 2019. There was a 3-year course which included level 2 and 3. I enrolled on this course as I was really keen to learn about the world of electrics, not just the practical side of things, but the science behind it all too. Once the first course was completed, my interest into the electrical world increased with how much I learned about it. This led me to enrol on the 2394 and 2395 testing courses. These courses provided a great insight to the science and the true workings of electrical installations. Once this was completed, I undertook the 17th edition wiring qualifications. This is now the 18th edition. As a QS, I always ensure to keep myself up to date with the current standard as BS 7671 wiring regulations. I believe it is important as it helps me pass on the correct and up-to-date advice to the engineers which I supervise. During the last 18 months, I took it upon myself to enrol on the NEBOSH course. Although not directly related to the electrical work I carry out, I believe it gives me a further understanding into the safety of construction work, which in my opinion will always be a positive thing. I began my journey with the IET in 2018. I've always looked up to the IET as a great institution and something I wanted to be a part of. So I began inquiring within the business I work for. Here I found a great mentor who helped me get on board with the IET and gain my professional registration. The IET also provided help in gaining the EngTech registration with their volunteers on hand to help me with any inquiries I had. I think professional registration is a great idea for anyone who pursues a successful career within the electrical industry, as it stands proof that you have experience within the field. It is also peer assessed, which again stands as for proof of your experience. Professional registration also helps you stand out amongst your colleagues, especially within a large business like the one I work for. I also believe it adds weight to any related business communication which you would send in, as you have the post nominals to identify your knowledge within the industry. Following my successful registration with the IET, I was invited to do an informative video. This video was designed to help break down the EngTech application process. I also became a professional registration advisor in 2018. I took up this role after being invited to do so by the IET, as they provided such useful knowledge and information throughout our application process. I wanted to give something back and help others succeed through the same application. As part of my volunteer role with the IET, I'm an assessor for EngTech applications. This involves me and other volunteers reading through the applications that are submitted. Once the applications are read, we either advise of a successful application or advise them where improvements can be made to help application become a successful one. Throughout my next few slides, I'm going to talk about support within a business environment, which it is my belief that sharing knowledge is a key part to a successful business. As mentioned briefly in one of my earlier slides, I assist my colleagues in various ways should they run into any difficulties at work. One of these jobs is shadowing on-site visits. I believe this is the best way to assist someone within our industry, as you're not only showing them how to carry out tasks, but you get the opportunity for them to carry out the task too. This allows them to carry out a task under your supervision, allowing you to point out any errors that are made or any improvements that you believe could be made. Whilst this is ongoing, you can also talk them through the tasks. This is a great way to instill confidence as well as allowing for a good point of reference for any future issues that may arise. I believe that sharing knowledge is key within the business environment as well as our entire industry. This is something I do whilst presenting toolbox talks to my colleagues. I've presented various toolbox talks, which include safe isolation, working at height, and working on electrical systems. As a QS, I've carried out various training sessions. During these training sessions, I teach my colleagues how to correctly use test equipment, how to correctly complete certification document, as well as how to carry out work in a safe manner. I intend to carry out my role as a key part of the volunteer team within the IET. Whilst doing so, I also intend to complete my registration for IEng. I believe that with the support of the IET, this is achievable. Academic-wise, I intend to enrol on electrical engineer HND as well as furthering my knowledge within the world of health and safety. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for listening and leave you with this quote from Winston Churchill, which I believe should play an important part in people's success.
Thank you, Nikki. And there we have clear and practical indication of how these things work in Nikki's case. I thought that was very helpful to put the whole thing in context. Finally, we've got a couple of short videos from Russell Jobbins. Russell is a senior engineer with over 25 years of experience working in multiple disciplines within the industry. His experience in design and implementation of specialized electrical systems has led to consultant contracts to clients in defense, renewable energy, and critical power sectors. He's going to talk about employer challenges and CPD.
So with CPD, it's something that I've actually done for probably throughout my whole career. I've had such an interest in reading the regulations, reading the standards, keeping up to date with everything, you know, new technologies. And it's something that when I kind of went up within the company that I work for, it's something that I kind of introduced internally. Obviously, if you encourage people, even sitting on things like the IET forums, I mean, just asking questions and getting answers, obviously is a form of CPD there. Obviously, we were allocating time for the guys to do CPD, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, the more that I invest in my guys, the more I get out of them. And, you know, that works 100%. So, you know, I'd really encourage anyone that's not doing CPD or a program of CPD to implement that, because I've noticed a big difference, especially, you know, in the learning skills of my individuals. It has raised, you know, tremendously. So I really do encourage people to do that. Well, as a contractor, obviously, probably the biggest challenge is balance, because I want to find someone that has the right credentials, yet also need someone that has, you know, the right work ethics. So you need someone that's got the practical skills, but also can apply themselves and basically the way that they act or behave. You probably realise there's a bit of a shortage in the industry at the moment with the electrical industry due to a number of reasons, and that's obviously Brexit and the pandemic. There's a shortage of apprentices at the moment. Locating candidates is a big problem as well that we find. Originally, back in the day, you could go out, you could You could ask someone, you could like word of mouth, you could put simple advertisements in place. And because there's a big pool of people in the industry out there, we struggle to get the right people in. So we have to be pretty concise in the way that we write, obviously, the job descriptions out there, because like I say, you'll write down what you actually want, but what actually comes through the door is huge, and you have to try and filter this down just so that you can find the right people. Another problem you have as well is that obviously with CVs, people can write a really good story, but the problem is until you, even when you interview, they might be brilliant at put them on the tools, put them in the field, that you can actually gauge what someone's actually like, and that's the difficult part. So generally this day, whereas we used to have put people on probation for 2 to 3 months, we actually put in a year now, because even when we start people, they can kind of hide behind other people, and it's only after a period of time that you can actually see what their work is like. Because some people work brilliantly in teams, but when you send them out on their own, that's when they sometimes fall short, and they will try and cover their tracks.
Thanks, Russell. We're now going to try and pick up some of the questions that have been coming up on the chat. Unfortunately, neither Peter Bonfield nor Nikki Dennis are able to be with us today, and so we were pleased that they'd recorded their inputs before we started. I'm going to bring in Michelle Richmond from the IET, who hopefully will be able to cover some of those issues. Russell Jobbins is here, so we'll be able to pick up issues from his input, and also Alex Gray, who you have seen before, from Thames Water. Michelle, let me start with you, if I may, please. Tell me a little bit more about the Concordat and how it works for employers.
Thanks, Keith. It's great to be here today. So signing the Concordat, this is a publicly signing of a document that affirms your company's commitment to help raising industry standards and your engineering staff competence. So very clear cut, and that ongoing commitment to your staff CPD beyond that very broad apprenticeship foundation that was talked about by Alex earlier on. There is a toolkit to help you assess how you're doing against the Concordat. And this is actually identifying your company's perhaps missing provision. So this can help guide your thinking, and the IT is here to help you identify gaps and how they might be filled by the IT's provision of services. It's really important that this Concordat is signed by the Chief Executive or Managing Director. And this is because it's about organisational leadership. It's leadership from the top, and it's for those to support those who are doing the work on the coalface or with the domestic installations in homes. And it's also about that assurance that we're doing our very best, as Peter said, to do the right thing and to get the right people with the right competence doing the job well. So the Concordat is quite simple, but it's all about top level leadership of your organisation. And one of the things I really wanted to say is that the Concordat's been signed by a whole range of UK national companies, small and large. And what I'm really keen to see is that the electrotechnical sector takes leadership, that they're proud of their profession and they're proud of developing their people. So that's the Concordat in brief, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And while I've got you here, would you like to say a bit more about why the IET is supporting a drive to raise individual competence and professional standards across the industry?
Yes, delighted to, Keith. Way back a decade ago, the government asked the IET as an independent charity to pull together a group of employers, both large and small, to actually form the Electrotechnical Trailblazer, to give it the overhaul that was required by government to make sure it was fit for purpose. The process that we went through was we had the employers together. They said what they wanted in the new electrical technical apprenticeship standard. what the compulsory units are, what the additional units are. And Keith, you alluded to earlier on that that's due for review, and we'll be gathering together the good and the great companies that really want to make sure those apprenticeships are fit for purpose. And very interesting, Alex talked about the digital element, which is now so very, very important. So having led the Trailblazer group, we were the first 9 out the blocks and recognised by government, and the smaller companies came to 10 Downing Street. A very proud moment for those who really committed to giving their time to develop the apprenticeship standard. However, you know, the apprenticeship standard is great, a fantastic foundation. We then went on to look at actually how can we recognise electricians more professionally. And so we pulled together a group of industry people to look at a contextualised standard for electricians. And this particularly, rather than being generic level 3 qualifications, this specifically details that they must have an electrotechnical apprenticeship level 3 as a minimum. It's also about the competence for the Engineering Council's UK spec framework, which includes ethics, sustainability, good communication skills. And we're extraordinarily proud in 2015 to actually have that published by the Engineering Council. So for the very first time, there is a bespoke standard for electricians. Now, it doesn't go into Alex's point that was made about specialisms beyond that, but it does say that there is something out there, and has been since 2015, before the Grenfell disaster, before Raising the Bar report, and specialist roles that are now being developed against UK spec standard. And this is not owned by the IET. This is owned by the regulator of the profession. And earlier we heard in part 1 of the conference, Alistair Coates, CEO of the Engineering Council, talk about the work that's going on in these roles specific for high-rise buildings. But this is what's out there now is EngTech, and you heard Nikki Dennis talking about it, that actually recognises there are specific public safety standards for EngTech for electrical. And that's so important. It's not the complete answer, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. So we've had a long-term passion for really recognising the importance of electricians being professionally qualified and being part of the profession. And part of the Concordat is we want the electrotechnical sector to step in and lead on that ongoing competence. So we've been passionate about it. And the reason we're having this conference is it's all very well the IET having views. What we need are industry views on what's right for the profession. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's talk a bit now about CPD. Russell, you were saying about how you conducted CPD, or you've carried out CPD throughout your career. As an employer, how do you instill that in your employees?
Well, technically, you can make any job as interesting or tedious as you like. So what I try and do is encourage the team to have an interest in what they're doing. And basically what we try and do is give them the right resources, and that could be toolbox talks, CPD, courses. But one of the key things I believe is textbooks and standards. And unfortunately, in the world of contracting, the standards, that becomes a problem, because you might have BS 7671, which is an expense, but that book will refer to lots of other standards that they might not be available for the smaller companies. And I do believe that's something that does need to change, because in different sectors, like that is actually available. So, you know, small companies can't absorb the cost of standards within their overheads. And I mean, I did see some of the comments that people posted where, you know, people not even paying for PPE or courses. I mean, there's been a big change, especially since the pandemic, because CPD isn't new. I mean, it's been around a very long time. I mean, the good thing about social media is like that awareness there now. Yeah. Everyone is on it. Everyone has jumped on it. And I mean, there's lots of people, organisations, you've got manufacturers, there's CPD, YouTube, there's so much information now. And it's just about gauging. So, I mean, we generally do appraisals with the guys, talk to them to see what they have an interest in. And because we're quite lucky as a company, as in the fact that we work in lots of different sectors. So when we take apprentices on, I'll generally move them around so that they can have a go at, you know, everything really. And because, like Alex kind of pointed out earlier about specialised subjects, that you don't have to have one. You could move into lots of different specialist subjects.
Yeah. And how do you talked about appraisals and stuff. How do you review and record the CPD that you have? Lawrence earlier talked about his, what was it, DEC, about the particular pieces of equipment that his people were trained on. Is that the sort of thing that you do?
So we do get audited on it, but I do appreciate not all companies do get audited on CPD, but we've kind of got set up in the office, which I put into place, you know, a while back. So every 2 weeks, because there's so much free CPD available now, like a link will go out to the individuals. They get 2 weeks to watch the CPD. And then generally, because I go around all the jobs, I'll talk to the guys and get some feedback of what they might like to watch next. And then that gets recorded on a matrix, a bit like the Alex kind of pointed out. And the fact that it is free, obviously it don't then, for the small companies, it's something that they can do as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what we do. I'm sure, you know, lots of people, I don't know what, obviously Alex spoke earlier about what his company does, but yeah, that's what we do.
Perhaps, sorry, Keith,
yeah, go on,
perhaps I
Michelle.
should just add that one of the benefits of being professionally registered with the IET is that you get access to Career Manager. And this tool, so if you're a very tiny company, if there's just 2 of you or there's 2 of you and 2 apprentices, you do get access to this Career Manager, which means you can record your CPD. It's there for posterity. You can print out CPD records, which you can say, I've done this particular course or I've done this particular piece of equipment. And that's a real benefit because you're not investing, like Thames Water perhaps has the means to invest in a recorded system for their staff. This actually means that you get a free tool that actually is there for life, and we can carry on supporting you by that recording and evidencing of ongoing professional development.
It's just
Thanks, Michelle. And Alex. Oh, yeah, go on.
It's a bit of a shame that, you know, my industry doesn't really embrace the IET. There's lots of stuff freely available. I mean, I got drawn into the IET many years ago on the IET forums because, you know, asking questions, getting answered, like I said previously. And that's how I've kind of been drawn into the IET, met so many nice people on there. And it's kind of a way in. But, you know, we've been looking for ways over the years to try and, you know, talk to this industry and bringing in people like me and Alex that have kind of come from that background it's a great thing.
Alex, do you want to say something about CPD and Thames Water?
Yes, I do. I might not keep it on Thames Water theme. I want to sort of just jump on the back of what Michelle said with Career Manager. Could have done with that when I did mine. I think it's a fantastic tool. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, doing it all myself, not thinking I needed a PRA, doing my application, having it rejected, then going through a PRA and actually having someone walk me through it. From where I was when I did my chartership to where we are now, and that GUI, so the user interface for Career Manager, I'm encouraging people who are at the very beginning, so apprentices that have just joined the company now, get on there, register your intent to become chartered, become a member, start using the tool. Yes, don't think you have to worry about becoming, you know, you're not going to become chartered tomorrow. You don't need to worry. It's not this big laborious task, but just get there, just start recording it. And I think as business leaders and, you know, everyone on this call, we need to help with the signposting because people are doing CPD and they don't even know they're doing it. Like they're watching these YouTube videos and they're learning, and it's just a natural, you know, we're engineers, you know, and electricians are engineers and they're watching videos. And, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to go into it, but there's a particular one about plumbing that I'm absolutely fascinated by. I'm watching him all the time and I'm constantly, you know, learning how I can braze pipes better, this, that, and the other. And it's just, you know, and sometimes I come back from that and I think, I'll just have a good sort of 15-minute, half an hour watch on YouTube. Actually, I've just done some CPD there. And it's that signposting to, you know, just, you've done it, record it. It's going to help with your professional development. And especially, you know, apprentices and sort of the people that are 1-2 years into their career journey. If they start doing it now, when it comes to doing their application, it's just going to be demonstrable
Naturally.
evidence that they are doing their CPD. And so, yeah, I think it's a fantastic tool and we should encourage people to do it. But signpost that
Yeah.
you know, these things you're doing are CPD.
Good argument for CPD. I love it. And also for an individual way of recording the CPD that you've completed. From the company's point of view, do you direct people towards CPD towards their next job, or simply record what people feel like doing?
From a mentoring perspective, if people,
Yeah.
I'm quite vocal with my team to say, look, you know, my door is always open. Come and talk to me, whatever it is. Look, you know, in terms of a hierarchical structure, there are not the same amount of manager roles as there are engineer roles in any one team, but there are opportunities, and the way to get out there and to make yourself available for those opportunities is to put yourself, you know, in that position where you're sort of learning. And we you know, we do our absolute best to try and cross skill. So like Russell's point with his apprentices, you know, put one on, I don't know, HVAC one day or for a 3-month rotation, then on to emergency lighting for another 3-month rotation. We are trying to do that, and we're trying to get better at that. So, you know, whether it's, I've got engineers who are doing stuff in the water part of the business, and we'll rotate them through into the waste part of the business, and then we'll try and rotate them around and try and just get better strategically, giving the apprentices and the learners more exposure to more of the different things safely. Ultimately, we can't rotate them too frequently because they need to learn, they need to get the experience, and they need to build competence in those areas, but just not stagnate. Get that right, a rich balance of the right levels of exposure in one area versus, you know, not stagnating for too long. And so we're doing that and encouraging CPD. I'm going to say this, of course, because it's an IET forum, but I'm being very, very vocal about go and use the IET, go and use the IET. And actually, to be fair, for the IT based people, we've got the BCS as well, and that all filters up under Eng Tech. You know, you chartered engineer, whether it's IET, whether it's BCS, it's all, you know, governed by that, you know, UK spec version 4 now. And so go and read that, go and start thinking about what those competencies mean in UK spec, because they are high level, because they've got to cover mechanical, they've got to cover chemical, they've got to cover civil, mechanical, electrical, whatever it is. But if you can start looking at your own journey as an engineer, looking at those competencies, planning out your development action plan so that you can build that CPD and have an encouraging, engaging employer who can give you those opportunities to, like Russell's doing, like I'm trying to do with my team, to go and try those areas. It's got to be the right thing to do.
Russell, there are those who say that by doing all this training and development, you're simply making your people more attractive to other organisations. How do you counter that argument?
I hope to think they, how do I keep my guys? Yeah, they could train up and leave, but generally, if you look after employees, I'd hope to think they'd stay. And to be honest, looking at our track record, we haven't got a huge turnover of people.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's slightly different, as we know. Some people kind of finish their college and that's it. And, you know, looking back initially with me, because like Alex pointed out earlier, probably in late 90s, you had electrical installation with City and Guilds didn't really end at the part 2. It was the C course.
Yeah.
But you went from like a class of 30, and then because by that time you was actually qualified under the JIB, when you went to do the C course, for those that had a greater interest, you'd find that there was probably about 5 or 10 in a class.
Yeah.
So not everyone shares the same interest in the industry.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, years ago, we didn't really do appraisals, and it's something that now, just getting them to have a voice back, getting an understanding of where they want to take their career, and making them changes, because, like I've kind of said already, there is so many different sectors within this industry. In the past, like we've sat down and we tried to categorise or subcategorise areas within the electrical contracting world, and it's too difficult. It's very difficult. What I would hope is that, because I might send a guy out, and you know, I know he might not be too familiar with that particular job, but what I'd hope that would do is, you know, ask questions and come to me, ask for help. And a lot of it's to do with knowing where to look. And like I said, the resources are freely available now, because social media is brilliant. I mean, CPD is the hot topic now. And there's so many people, lots of volunteers for the IET. They do it on their own or with the IET. And there's some people that have such a passion for it now. They spend so much time and effort. Any hot topics come up, I can guarantee they'll be doing a webinar on it. And I take my hat off to them, because it's brilliant. And a lot of my guys, that's the things they'll work, because it's easy. They can just sit on a train journey in, sit and watch a video and learn something new. Now there is a downfall. I mean, I'm all on the CPD, and people probably just like me, but if I'm watching, you know, a webinar, I normally sit down there, take notes, because taking note is a great way of learning. And then I generally cross-reference everything they've spoken about, because they might not be 100%. So you can't take like gospel what they've said, and it's down to you as the individual. So and that's when you kind of get an interest for it, because you want to kind of cross-reference what they've said. You might find something that maybe is incorrect, and quite often you can actually contact these authors on YouTube or whatever platform they're on, and then start that conversation, and which is great. I mean, I do really recommend like the forum.
And can I just add very quickly, because that's a really good point, and it's made me inward reflect on my comment about watching YouTube videos about brazing pipes. I am an engineer who knows my limitations. I am not qualified to work on a boiler, so no matter how many YouTube videos I watch, I'm never going to change a boiler. Okay, but if I'm going to just do a little bit of brazing, you know, in my downstairs toilet to move a sink, you know, I'm in my own house. I feel that I'm competent and qualified enough to do that, and that it's a really good point, and it is, you know, something that we've got to be careful about. You know, with all these CPD offerings that are out there, that it's not go and watch a YouTube video and all of a sudden qualify to be a gas engineer. But they are brilliant for that background knowledge and that ability. Russell, you touched on it beautifully. Watch it, because it enthuses you to go out and do further research, and hey, you never know, you might be, you know, doing a career change.
And it does very easily help you learn around your specific possibly your specific area of competence. It gives you a broader view of the environment that you're working in. To go back to the question I asked Russell, just to give you the opportunity, Alex, how do you, once you've put all this effort into encouraging and training people, how do you hang on to them? Or don't you?
No, well, that's the point. It's you've got to have healthy churn. There's got to be people. You know, if someone comes into the team, trains up, does a really good job, and then goes somewhere else because they can get better money, I'm always so very, you know, thankful for their time and congratulate them on you know, improving their career. I can't get upset that they want to leave. Definitely not. Where I need to get on it is shoring up the pipeline, the apprenticeships, the graduate schemes, those trainings. So as long as I have the pipeline that feeds in to make sure that as people mature through the business, and look, there's going to be opportunities within the business, and hopefully we can retain some people, but we can't retain everyone. You know, anyone that's aspiring to climb, you know, through the corporate world or the engineering world, they're ultimately going to move on. Okay, so for me to say, no, we need to keep everyone, that would be fundamentally naive of me. So what I need to do is ensure that the pipeline is robust enough to make sure that when people do move on, I've got people ready to come and take those positions to grow into those roles. And I think by doing that, that's got to be the right approach.
I think that's a very good. I think that's a very good way of doing it. That you don't regard people moving on as disloyalty. You actually regard it as credit to you for helping them develop their career.
More importantly, credit to themselves, though. Credit to themselves for doing it and developing themselves.
And I think that's
I shake their hands and welcome them.
A very positive and helpful way of looking at it.
Can I just add a point to that?
You know, as I've heard it said, you know, the only way you getting promotion and you're not having my job, you'll have to go somewhere else. Michelle, sorry.
Well, I think Russell was going to add to that.
Yeah, all I was going to
Sorry.
say is where
Yeah.
people have left, generally they've gone and started their own contractors.
Yeah.
When they have left, I've continued to support them because obviously I understand how, you know, how hard it is to run a contractors. It's not, you know, it's not that easy. So the support has always been there, and then generally, you know, they come back work me on a subcontracting basis. So yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, what's good about the IET is the fact that there's a lot of support there that people don't know is there, and we're always looking for volunteers because I see a lot of people commenting, and it'd be great for these themselves to put themselves forward.
And can I just add a little bit
Michelle,
about the pipeline?
Yeah,
we
please.
heard Jill George talk about the attractiveness of you know, the electrotechnical sector to women. There is something about this is a profession. You know, this is not just a job, you know, where you're going to forever be on the tools, or you know, you might aspire to a qualified supervisor, but this is something about the electrotechnical sector is a profession and can be demonstrated by your professional qualifications. And that's really important to attracting, you know, attracting a wide range of diversity into the profession, because sometimes we don't talk about that. It's all about the, now, are you regs qualified and can you do the job? That's incredibly important, but also it's standing up and saying we are a profession with career paths. And I think that's really important for attracting those to do apprenticeships in the first place.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And Alex, one of the points that's come up on the chat is the notion of, if you like, payback. That if you're going to put time and money into developing a person who's working for you, should they then be contracted to continue to work for you for a period of time?
Yeah, it's a great challenge, and I'm brutally honest. It's I believe it is. It depends. I think within Thames, I've got to be careful how I say this. There are some courses. So if I need someone to do something that is of direct benefit, I don't know, HV switching, or security clearance, I need that. They need to have that skill set to be able to perform the job.
Yeah.
Without question, that gets funded and they go and do it. And I believe that we won't lock them in. I certainly, in my team, won't lock them. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the entire Thames Water, but in my team, I won't lock anyone in on that. If it's a degree, or if it's a master's, or if it's one of those longer term qualifications that it's not necessarily something that you have to perform the job, then of course we want it where we can, and it's not always a case that we can, but where we can and we can support it, that they're the sorts of qualifications where we would perhaps put in a 1 year sort of, you know, if you leave within 1 year of qualifying, you're going to pay back a percentage of that course. And I think there are some mechanisms out there, but I think that's for each company to tailor their own. So I wouldn't recommend, you know, it's not for me to say what anyone else outside of my world should do. There are ways of incentivizing individuals to stay for a bit longer after they qualify, but there are those courses that you just have to be able to perform the job. And in my opinion, in my team, I would just fund that to get it done. I need the job doing at the end of the day. But just to clarify, I do work for a very large company. We do have the ability to invest in that, and I do understand that for the smaller contractors, that is difficult.
Concern. Yeah, Russell.
And I agree. To be fair, like within our contracts that the guys have, any training that is given, generally there's you know, we do talk to them to say, you know, if you leave within a certain period of time, you might pay a percentage back. Has it actually happened? Not really. I mean, in our industry, there's a massive framework of health and safety. So it isn't just about electrical qualifications, because now I've got to have guys that have IPAF or, you know, PASMA. So there's lots of overheads that you need to pay up for that I need them to have, because otherwise they literally just can't do the job. Yeah.
Okay. A thread that was running through the chats earlier on was this relationship between QSs and electricians, and just how many jobs at any one time can a QS sign off. Do you have a view on that?
I do. It's something that I wish that the EAS scheme had kind of implemented. I mean, if you've got big electrical contractors with 200 electricians, is one QS enough? Well, I'd hope to think that the managing director would realise that no, it isn't. And there's no rule to say that you can't have additional QSs. I've got five QSs, and even then I don't think that's, you know, quite enough. So, you know, there's got to be a ratio, and I wish it's something that they will introduce at a later date. I mean, that QS can't go to every job, and even with five, I can't have, you know, it's even difficult there, like moving people around.
Yeah.
So it is difficult.
Yeah. Alex?
For me, this is a difficult one because I'm not directly linked with the QS in terms. I agree with Russ on this particularly. It's a hard one. So as a QS, how do you assure yourself and your company that the certificates you're getting in are what they say they are?
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, it's wrong for me. In my opinion, it's wrong for a QS to just sit there and sign certificates blindly because they've got that role. I do think that has, you know, their day job has got to be a nice mixture of, you know, signing certificates at face value, but also doing some auditing and quality assurance and getting out there. And so whatever that balance is, has got to be right. Russell's point of, you know, 200 Sparkies and one QS, yeah, it's never going to work. The fact that he's got 5 in his company is fantastic. You know, a company I used to work for, we had best part of 20 ICA technicians and electricians. We only had one QS, and it wasn't enough. He couldn't, you know, this individual could not get out to site, could not audit every site, and was, you know, signing more certificates than he could go and audit.
I mean, realistically, you know, it doesn't take a scientist to realise that you've got to have a ratio of obviously operatives to the QS. Now, all my QSs, they don't just sit in the office and sign certificates. They actually go to site, you know, verify, you know, encourage toolbox talks. It's got to be done correctly, even because obviously under the CPS scheme, you'd have the principal duty holder. And obviously he has a role to make sure that that's been done properly. And a lot of organisations make a mistake of having the PDH and the QS as that one person, when really they're 2 roles.
The comments on the chat has suggested a ratio of 1 to 7. I'm not expressing a view. I just wonder what you think.
I mean, very, very specific number, 7, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd like to understand where that's come from. But I mean, yeah, it sounds right.
I think it'd be different depending on the type of work that you've done.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the sector they're working in. It's very difficult. I mean, to put it, you know, even with the 5 I've got, it's never perfect, but
no,
you know, I think we're doing better than most. You know, I really believe that, you know, we've got a good model. I mean, I've been a QS for over 20 years. When I first done my apprenticeship, my key goal was at the time is I want to work for a big electrical contractor and be the QS, and that's what I've done. I went and done that. I had such an interest in making sure everything was right, and the only way that you can make other people be the same is just try and educate them, really, because I think it's just finding that common interest, and once you've done that, that's it. So, and that works for me. So,
Michelle, do you have any thoughts in this area?
Actually, Keith, this is not my area of specialism. However, you know, we were talking many years ago to big county councils who have a massive supply chain. You have the primary contractor, and then it goes down into subcontractors and subcontractors. And the only thing that I would say is that the more qualified the individuals are doing the job, the easier the QS, or more assured we are by the QS sign-off. So this is all about back to individual competencies demonstrated, and also people who are willing to sign up to ethical behaviours. So if they're coming across something they don't know how to do, touching a little bit on Alex's story earlier on, is they stop and say, I don't know how to do it, and don't just carry on because they've got another 6 houses to do by the end of the day. So the more individually competent people we have, you know, literally at the wallface, the more assurance given to the QS sign-off.
Unfortunately, obviously, our world, there's a lot of myths, and obviously that's a problem. And these do come around from, you know, webinars and people not double checking, obviously, what should be right and wrong. So people might be thinking they're putting it in right, but they're not. And sadly, their QS hasn't picked that up. But you know, QS is meant to have above average knowledge. That's the idea.
Yeah,
they've got, you know, they understand the regulations well. Understand working practices well. So yeah, it is a difficult task. Okay.
I probably that's enough for now. Is there anything that any of you want to bring in that we haven't covered as yet? Come on, Russell, there must be something.
I was just going to talk about the EngTech journey and
yeah,
you know, what's been going on with Elec EngTech. I think it's fantastic. I think if I had it when I was, you know, just completing my electrician apprenticeship, I would have jumped at the chance of that. And I just think everything we're doing to encourage that, I think it's brilliant. I think Sparkies in the main are engineers and you know, are doing a brilliant job, and I think they need to be encouraged to that's the word. The word's out of my mouth. Thank you, Keith. They need to be recognized for that, and the EngTech qualification, professional qualification, gives them that framework and ability to do that.
And I just might add to that is that the IET do support obviously Alex, and I'll be at the stand in Bolton coming up, so if anyone's in the area, do pop in, ask any questions you want to ask. We'll be doing some questions on the stand, so yeah, I mean, the support is there. It's just got to ask.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, thank you very. In fact, thank you, all of you. As we move towards the close of the conference, Michelle, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Always ready to go, Keith.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Alex.
No problem.
Michelle.
Thanks, Keith. It's really my pleasure to sort of round up all that you've heard in both part one of the conference and part two. And there's two specific calls to action. We heard from Dame Judith Hackett about this recognition of key safety critical roles and the work that's going on with the Engineering Council. And really, it's all about making this electrotechnical sector race to the top, really race to the top. And by doing two things. One is standing up and taking leadership through the Concordat and making sure that your company, big or small, is actually thinking seriously about signing up to the Concordat that Peter Bonfield spoke so eloquently about earlier. And this is really saying that we care about the profession, we care about the profession in both of the standing of the profession, but also about the professionalism of our staff. So number one, Keith, we want Concordat sign-ups. The second call for action is really very simple. It's to carry on the debate that we've had over the last two sessions. It's incredibly important that this is something the IET is enabling, but actually it's driven by the industry. It's driven by people like Russell, by Alex, by Jill, by Nikki Dennis for their own personal journeys. And we want to hear from you. We want you to be our voice. We are an enabler, we're a charity. We care so much about professionalism. And that's at all levels. That's at EngTech, iEng and CEng. You've heard Alex has been through the whole lot. And as have I, you know, as a chartered engineer, but I was an incorporated engineer. So really the two calls to action. Think about your leadership as a company to sign up for the Concordat, and secondly, to actually be a voice for us on the National Advisory Committee. Thanks, Keith.
Michelle, thank you very much indeed. And so it falls to me to draw the event to the close. Those of you who were here at the beginning of the first session will recall that I made the point that this conference has been in development for 18 months to 2 years, and was originally intended to be a whole day in-person conference. But a whole series of things got in the way, COVID, of course, being the obvious one. However, I would like once again to pay tribute to the IET staff who didn't lose hope. And although this was rearranged, I think about 5 times, they still kept pressing on. I'd like to pay tribute also to our speakers who stayed with us. Surprisingly and pleasingly, people like Dame Judith Hackett and Alistair Coates from the Engineering Council. I think it was absolutely the right decision to ultimately run this online, and certainly in 2 sessions, because a whole day online conference would just be unbearable. I think the other advantage of that is that it stays there for people who are unable to attend at the time to look at later on. And the figures for the first part, I think demonstrate that. As I said at the beginning today, we had something like 500 people on the conference and something like 2,000 people who looked at it afterwards. We've heard from an excellent range of speakers. We've had the overview and the strategy, and we've had some, particularly this morning, we've had some very detailed inputs from people who've done it and people who have strong views about how it ought to be done. I mentioned also at the beginning that one of the ways in which I judge these sorts of things is by the quality of the questions and the debate, and tracking the chat. The questions and the debate have been very impressive. I think it shows that this is an important area that a lot of people feel strongly about. To an extent, I guess we're preaching to the converted, but we need to find a way of taking this message about individual competence, about CPD, about continued competence to the other people who, for one reason or another, are not forming part of this debate. And I think that will be part of the challenge that we need to pick up and carry forward. So in closing, let me say thank you very much for your time this morning. And if you're watching this and watch it again, thank you very much for your time as well. We will take away the comments and the questions on the chat, which will give us an agenda to work to in the future. And we will also be sending out a survey if you could take some time to complete that and let us have your views, that would be very helpful. So I'm going to close now, say thank you very much to everybody for your attendance. Thank you particularly to the wide range of speakers. And whilst in different circumstances, I'd wish you a good journey home. Probably many of you are there already. Thank you and good morning. There were questions and also debate, which was.
you.